Hello, another video from my series of rearranging Beatle, or in this case solo Beatle albums. I played around with a couple of solo albums mainly by George and Paul. I attempted that, how could you rearrange an album or two albums into one that maybe possibly a better album would be the result of. With George it didn't really work out. I tried to create an album where the best tracks from Dark Horse, Extra Texture and 33 and a Third would be combined into one really good album, but I wasn't happy with that album, so it didn't work that way. But I found one case in Paul McCartney's career when such a alternate reality could have worked, and this is his two early 80s albums, the two albums he did after Wings disbanded and also after John Lennon was killed, so very traumatic time in his life it was. And that was also the reason why he took his first, a time off. He released Tug of War in 1982, so there was a 2 years gap between McCartney 2 and Tug of War, which was at that time a very long gap. Tug of War came out in, like I said, 1982, and it got good reviews. It was welcomed with warm reviews by the critics. It also was a commercial success, especially because of the big single hit Ebony and Ivory. Some hate that song, a few love that song. I like that song. I don't see why it's a song you could hate. It's like you could hate Imagine for the same reason, and I think probably people who hate Imagine also hate this song. I think it's a bit soppy and one-dimensional. But every now and then I'm okay with peace anthems. Peace is a good thing in my opinion, and the song itself isn't a bad song. There's a good melody and everything. And it has, of course, Stevie Wonder. So I like Ebony and Ivory. But again, what I wanted to say is Tug of War was one could say a huge success for Paul. I think it was at that time his most acclaimed album since Band on the Run. And yeah, it's a fine album. I also think it's a fine album. I think it was number 9 or 8 in my ranking of all the Beatles solo albums, my very first video. So I really like it. The year after Tug of War he released Pipes of Peace, and this album didn't even make my top 40 favorite Beatles solo albums. That video was a top 40 Beatles solo albums video. Pipes of Peace wasn't even in the top 40, but it would have come shortly after number 40. I guess it must be around like my 54th favorite Beatles solo album, and I don't think it's the worst album Paul McCartney ever did. I think Press to Play, for example, and one or two others I don't really like, but I like Pipes of Peace. But the critics didn't like it as well. It started a kind of downward phase in his career. Some say that phase ended with Flowers in the Dirt, some say it ended with Flaming Pie, so according to who you ask, it's either a 10-year or almost 20-year gap where Paul McCartney had an artistic low. Like I said, I don't really... Well, between 84 and 88, maybe that was his worst period, I can see that. But Pipes of Peace is an average album, I would say, but it has 2 or 3 standout tracks, so I guess I thought there would be a way to combine Tug of War and Pipes of Peace to make an even better album, and it worked. I think this would have been the album I'm going to tell you about. This would have been a even better album than the very good Tug of War. And to the defense of Pipes of Peace, I've seen in recent years that it got re-evaluated, especially younger McCartney fans, that the more hip McCartney fans, it's like a hipster opinion, I guess, that Pipes of Peace isn't worse than Tug of War, and some even think it's better than Tug of War. I'm in the middle, you know, I'm not a very old Paul McCartney fan, but I'm not a young Paul McCartney fan as well, so maybe I'm in the middle ground. I think Tug of War is a great album, and Pipes of Peace is like a lesser version 2.0. You know, Pipes of Peace is first and foremost leftovers from the Tug of War sessions, so I think even Paul McCartney knew at the time that it's not as good because the in his opinion best songs went on Tug of War, and like I said, some leftovers and some really some really, in my opinion, very bad songs are on Pipe. Some of my least favorite official Paul McCartney songs are on the album Pipes of Peace. But this video is not about those. This video is about the songs I like from that album combined with Tug of War. And you know, in that alternate universe, there would really be like you could make really a case that it would have been better for him to wait 3 years, you know, after the death of John Lennon and the end of Wings, you know, it would have been okay to make a 3-year break after, you know, the workaholic Paul McCartney, one album from 1962 till 1980, he churned out one album after the other. So everybody would have understood after the John Lennon thing and the Wings thing and the drug bust in Japan in 1980 that, you know, he probably needs some time off, and then he could have returned with an even better album, you know, not in 1982 but in 1983, with an album that I would call Tug of Peace. And you know, this is my track list. I think it's excellent. Would start off with, and you know, just listen to the album in that sequence. I think it's a great sequence, you know. Track number one would be Pipes of Peace. Track number 2, Here Today, and track number 3, Ebony and Ivory. So a very somber beginning, which, you know, at that time would have felt honest, and it would have been honest. You know, those are soul-searching songs and songs that deal with the death of John Lennon and with himself getting older and more mature. So if there was ever a time in Paul McCartney's career when such a, you know, tame start to an album would have made sense, then in that scenario. So 3 ballads, 3 slow songs, 3 very thoughtful songs at the beginning with good messages. Then we had the party segment of the album. Track 4, The Man. Track 5, What's That You're Doing? And side 1 would conclude with Say, Say, Say. And so you can see what I did here. Tracks 3 to 6 would have been the 2 duets with Stevie Wonder and the 2 with Michael Jackson. So instead of, you know, fragmenting the album, you know, there wouldn't have been a flow if there was 4 duets on that album, and track 1 would be one, track 4 another, track 7 the next. So I thought it would have been like a medley, almost like the Abbey Road medley or something, the duet medley. And you know, it's intermingled. You know, first you have a song with Stevie Wonder, then you have a song with Michael Jackson, then Stevie Wonder again, then Michael Jackson. And the second half of side A would also be up-tempo, upbeat, funky. So it would be a cool end to the side A. Side B, no duets there, would start with The Pound Is Sinking, which is a great number 1 for a side, I would say. Track 2, Tug of War, would be one of the highlights of that album, of course. Song Tug of War. 3, Ballroom Dancing, so to have at least one proper rock or rock and roll song on that album. Not my favorite on that album, but you know, it needs one song like that, I guess. And I prefer to Take It Away. Take It Away didn't make it on that album. But I like Take It Away, but I think Ballroom Dancing is the better rocker. Track 4, Wanderlust, great ballad. Track 5, Dress Me Up As a Robber, so a bit more experimental, more McCartney to McCartney at the end. And the album would end with track 12, So Bad. Nice ballad at the end to, you know, say goodbye. This would, you know, be a really, first of all, a very mature album, but with the party segments in the middle of the sides, so up tempo as well. But you know, the beginning and the end, it would be like this reflecting on life and getting mature kind of album.